Commander Zexhai clicked his mandibles in frustration as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports from the Galactic Council's Xenobiology Division. The holographic display showed rotating images of various species, each more heavily armored than the last. The Kythera with their diamond-hard carapaces, the Mortari with their bone plate reinforcements, the Veltar whose skin could deflect plasma bolts. All formidable races that had earned their place in the galaxy through millennia of evolutionary warfare. Then, there were the humans. Zexhai's 4 eyes focused on the human specimen data, and he felt his breathing spiracles flutter with what his species called confused amusement. The bipedal mammals stood barely 2 meters tall, possessed no natural weapons beyond blunt teeth and soft nails, and their skin appeared to be made of the same fragile tissue that covered most prey species. No scales, no chitin, no reinforced bone structure. Nothing that would suggest they belonged among the galactic community's warrior races. "Sir," his aide, Lieutenant Mordan, approached with the characteristic caution of someone bearing unwelcome news. "The humans have submitted their application for membership in the Galactic Defense Coalition." Zexhai's laugh was a harsh, chittering sound. "Those soft-skinned creatures want to join our military alliance? Have they seen what we're up against out here? The Devourers alone would crack their bones just by looking at them wrong." "That's what I thought too, sir, but—" Mordan hesitated, his voice dropping to an uncertain whisper. "The preliminary combat assessments are unusual." The commander's expression shifted from amusement to irritation. "Unusual how?" "Well, sir, they've passed every physical challenge we've given them. Not just passed, excelled. Yesterday, human candidate Sarah Chen completed the Kythera endurance trial that's designed to test diamond carapace limits. She not only finished, but set a new record." Zexhai's mandibles snapped shut. The Kythera endurance trial was legendarily brutal, a 72-hour gauntlet of physical punishment that would hospitalize most species. "That's impossible. Their medical scans show they have no natural armor whatsoever." "That's correct, sir. No armor, but—" Mordan pulled up a secondary display showing cellular analysis. "Their muscle fibers are incredibly dense. Their bone structure is surprisingly resilient despite appearing delicate, and their cardiovascular system operates at efficiency levels we've never seen. But most importantly, sir, they seem to have this remarkable ability to adapt to damage in real time." The word adapt caught Zexhai's attention like a prey animal catching a predator's scent. In galactic military terms, adaptation meant the difference between species that thrived and species that became extinct. "Explain." "During the trial, we monitored human Chen continuously. When her muscles began to tear from exertion, instead of failing, they began rebuilding themselves stronger than before. When her bones started showing stress fractures, they began depositing additional calcium to reinforce the weak points. Her cardiovascular system actually increased in capacity during the test. By hour 60, she was performing better than when she started." Zexhai stared at the data, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "You're telling me that instead of being damaged by our trials, she was improved by them?" "Yes, sir. And that's not the strangest part." Mordan switched to a different file. "Human candidate James Rodriguez underwent the Veltar Pain Resistance Protocol. As you know, this test measures how long a candidate can maintain combat effectiveness while experiencing simulated battle injuries. The Veltar Pain Protocol was notoriously savage. The reptilian Veltar had evolved with distributed nervous systems that allowed them to function even when severely wounded. Most species lasted minutes before their pain responses overwhelmed their cognitive functions. Rodriguez lasted 14 hours, sir. 14 hours of simulated trauma that should have rendered him unconscious within the first 20 minutes. But here's the fascinating part. His pain tolerance actually seemed to increase during the test. By hour 10, Injuries that should have incapacitated him were barely affecting his performance. Zexhai felt a chill run down his exoskeleton. How is that possible without natural armor or pain-dampening biologics? We're not entirely sure, sir, but our xenopsychologists have a theory. They believe humans possess what they're calling psychological armor. Their minds seem capable of adapting to extreme circumstances by simply deciding that the circumstances are normal. That's ridiculous. Pain is pain. Damage is damage. With respect, sir, that's exactly what we thought. Until we saw the recordings. Mordan activated a holographic playback showing Rodriguez during hour 12 of the protocol. The human was methodically working through combat scenarios, while synthetic pain receptors fired signals that should have left him writhing on the ground. Instead, he moved with calm precision, occasionally muttering things like, "Yeah, that hurts, but whatever," and "just another Tuesday." Our pain specialists are baffled, sir. According to every model we have, he should be catatonic. Instead, he's treating battlefield-level trauma like a minor inconvenience. Zexhai watched the recording 3 times, each viewing making him more unsettled. What about the third candidate? Ah, yes. Human candidate Maria Santos underwent the Mortari survival simulation. Mordan's voice took on an almost reverent tone. Sir, she didn't just survive it, she thrived in it. The Mortari survival simulation was designed around the principle that warfare was ultimately about outlasting your opponent. The bone-armored Mortari were legendary for their ability to endure conditions that would kill most species: extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, starvation, dehydration, and psychological isolation. The simulation compressed months of potential battlefield hardships into a 2-week ordeal. Santos not only completed the full simulation, but emerged in better physical condition than when she entered. When we asked her how, she said, and I quote, "I just got stubborn about not dying." Stubborn about not dying? Zexhai repeated the phrase slowly, as if testing each word for hidden meaning. That's what she said, sir. Our analysts believe she was referring to what appears to be a species-wide psychological trait, an almost supernatural refusal to accept defeat or death, even when defeat or death would be the logical outcome. Zexhai began pacing, a nervous habit from his younger days. You're telling me that these creatures, who appear to have no natural defenses whatsoever, are somehow outperforming species that evolved specifically for warfare? Yes, sir. And there's more. Mordan hesitated again. We decided to run a comparative analysis. We took the 3 hardest trials in our assessment protocol and ran them simultaneously on volunteers from our most elite units. The commander stopped pacing. Elite units from the Galactic Defense Coalition represented the absolute pinnacle of military evolution. Each warrior was the product of millions of years of natural selection for combat effectiveness, enhanced by the finest training and equipment the galaxy could provide. The humans didn't just compete with our elite units, sir. They dominated them, not through superior technology or tactics, but through sheer persistence. They just refused to quit, no matter what we threw at them. That's impossible. I thought so too, sir. So I authorized a direct observation session. I wanted to watch these humans in action myself. Mordan's voice dropped to a whisper. What I saw changed everything I thought I knew about warfare. Zexhai leaned forward, his predatory instincts fully engaged. Tell me. We set up a mock battle scenario. Humans versus our Kithara champions. The Kithara are diamond hard, sir. They've never been defeated in single combat. Their natural armor can deflect energy weapons, and their strength is legendary. And the human, candidate Chen again, walked up to the largest Kithara warrior, took a full-strength blow to her ribcage that should have killed her instantly, staggered back, coughed up some blood, and said, "Okay, my turn." Then she proceeded to fight for 6 hours straight, until the Kithara warrior collapsed from exhaustion. Zexhai felt his world shifting. Everything he understood about combat, about natural selection, about the fundamental principles that governed galactic civilization, was being challenged by these soft-skinned bipeds. "Sir, I don't think they're unarmored. I think they've evolved something far more dangerous than any physical protection we've encountered. They've developed the ability to simply ignore the concept of limitations." The commander stared at the human medical data again, seeing it with new eyes. No natural armor, no enhanced strength, no evolved weapons, just an apparently infinite capacity to endure and adapt to whatever the universe threw at them. "Schedule a meeting with the human delegation," he said quietly. "I need to understand what we're dealing with." "Yes, sir. Should I prepare our standard new species orientation materials?" Zexhai considered this for a moment, then slowly shook his head. The meeting room aboard the GDC flagship, Eternal Vigilance, had been specifically designed to intimidate new species applying for coalition membership. The chamber's walls displayed holographic records of the galaxy's greatest military victories, each one demonstrating the overwhelming power that came from proper evolutionary adaptation to warfare. Massive viewport windows showed the assembled coalition fleet, thousands of warships representing dozens of species, each vessel a testament to millions of years of natural selection and technological advancement. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat across from Commander Zexhai, and the sight of her made his compound eyes water with confusion. She looked like she should be teaching younglings in some peaceful agricultural colony, not representing a species that wanted to join the galaxy's premier military alliance. Her skin was pale and obviously vulnerable, her frame lean but not particularly muscular, and she possessed none of the intimidating physical characteristics that marked true warrior races. "Commander Zexhai," she began, her voice carrying a casual confidence that somehow made the massive alien feel smaller. "I understand you have some concerns about humanity's application to join the Galactic Defense Coalition." "Concerns?" Zexhai's mandibles clicked nervously. "Ambassador, with all due respect, your species appears to be completely unsuited for military operations. You have no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no evolved weapon systems. How do you expect to stand against threats like the Devourer swarms or the Crystal hegemony?" Chen smiled, an expression that on most species would indicate submission or harmlessness. On her face, it looked predatory. "Commander, may I ask how long the Coalition has been fighting the Devourer swarms?" "Nearly 800 standard years," Zexhai replied, wondering where this was leading. "And in those 800 years, how much territory have you reclaimed from them?" The question hit like a physical blow. That's not the point. The Devourers are—" "How much territory, Commander?" Zexhai's mandibles snapped shut. The honest answer was 0. Despite the Coalition's vast military superiority, advanced technology, and highly evolved warrior races, they had managed only to slow the Devourer advance, not stop it. The Devourers are unlike any threat the galaxy has faced. They don't negotiate, they don't retreat, they simply consume everything in their path. Interesting. Chen leaned back in her chair, somehow managing to look relaxed in a room designed to project overwhelming military power. "They sound a lot like humans, actually." "I beg your pardon?" "Commander, what would you say if I told you that humanity has been fighting wars continuously for our entire recorded history? Not 800 years, 10,000 years. Wars against our environment, wars against predators, wars against disease, wars against each other, wars against concepts like hunger and poverty and death itself." Zexhai felt his breathing spiracles constrict. 10,000 years of continuous warfare? At minimum. Probably closer to 50,000 if you count our pre-recorded history. We've never known peace, Commander. Peace is something other species enjoy. Humans just know different types of war. But your species has no natural weapons, no natural weapons? Chen interrupted, her smile becoming even more unsettling. Commander, we turned our entire planet into a weapon. We domesticated predators for fun. We created agriculture by declaring war on the concept of scarcity. We invented medicine by refusing to accept that death was natural. We developed spaceflight because we got bored with conquering our own world. She stood up and walked to the viewport, gesturing at the Coalition fleet. This is impressive, Commander. Thousands of ships, each representing the pinnacle of their species' military evolution. But may I ask, how long did it take to assemble this fleet? The Coalition has been building for over 3 millennia, Zexhai answered, pride creeping into his voice despite his confusion. 3,000 years to build a defensive fleet. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Humanity built its first global civilization in less than 10,000 years, starting from stone tools. We went from discovering fire to splitting atoms in about 8,000 years. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet just to see if we could, then decided that wasn't quite dangerous enough, so we went looking for other planets to play with. The ambassador turned back to face him, and Zexhai saw something in her eyes that made his exoskeleton itch. It wasn't madness exactly, but it was something that his species had no word for, an absolute certainty that any problem could be solved through sufficient application of stubborn violence. Commander, your coalition has been fighting the Devourers for 800 years with minimal success? Would you like to know how humans solved our Devourer problem? Your... what? Zexhai's voice came out as barely a whisper. Oh yes, we had Devourers too. We called them different things. Locusts, plagues, invasive species, cancer. Things that consumed everything in their path with no regard for balance or sustainability. Chen's smile turned absolutely feral. We declared war on them, and we won. That's impossible. The Devourers can't be defeated through conventional warfare. Who said anything about conventional? Chen walked back to her seat, moving with the casual confidence of someone who had never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved through creative application of violence. We tried diplomacy with our locusts, too. Didn't work. So we invented pesticides. When they adapted to pesticides, we invented better pesticides. When they adapted to those, we genetically modified crops to be poisonous to them. When they adapted to that, we created biological weapons specifically designed to target their reproduction. Zexhai felt his world tilting again. Biological weapons against an ecosystem threat. Commander, we turned the entire concept of evolution into a weapon. We didn't just fight the locusts, we out-evolved them. We made ourselves better at adaptation than they were. Chen sat down and leaned forward. The Devourers think they're the ultimate consumers? That's cute. Humans consume concepts. We ate the idea of scarcity and turned it into abundance. We devoured the concept of distance and turned it into the space program. We consumed death itself and turned it into medicine. You're talking about concepts as if they were physical enemies. Aren't they? Commander, what exactly do you think war is? It's not just physical combat. It's the application of resources and will to overcome obstacles. Your coalition fights the Devourers like they're a military threat. We'd fight them like they're an engineering problem. Chen activated a small holographic projector she'd brought with her. The display showed what appeared to be a standard star system, but Zexhai noticed something odd about the asteroid belt. This is the Ross 128 system, where we encountered our first space-based Devourers about 50 years ago. Small swarm, only a few million individuals, but they'd already consumed 2 planets and were working on the 3rd. And you retreated to gather a coalition fleet? Retreated? Chen laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both musical and terrifying. Commander, we got excited. Do you see those asteroids? Zexhai looked more closely at the holographic display. The asteroids appeared to be moving in formation. Those aren't asteroids. No, they're not. They're devourers. Or rather, they were. We captured them, lobotomized them, and turned them into mining equipment. Those asteroids are now humanity's primary source of rare minerals in that system. The commander stared at the display in growing horror. You enslaved the devourers? Enslaved is such an ugly word. We prefer repurposed. They're still doing what they evolved to do, consuming things efficiently. They're just consuming what we want them to consume now. Chen's smile became positively radiant. The best part is they're self-replicating. We've essentially created a workforce that breeds more workers while they mine. That's monstrous. Is it? Commander, your coalition has been trying to destroy the Devourers for 800 years. We solved the problem in 18 months and turned a threat into a resource. Which approach seems more effective? Zexhai realized he was trembling. What are you saying? I'm saying that humanity doesn't need natural armor because we've never encountered anything we couldn't either kill, domesticate, or repurpose. We're not warriors, Commander. Warriors fight enemies. We're something much more dangerous. What are you? Chen's expression became thoughtful, as if she was considering how to explain water to a fish. We're problem solvers. And from our perspective, everything is either a problem to be solved or a tool to be used to solve other problems. She gestured again at the viewport showing the coalition fleet. Your ships are very impressive, but they're thinking like warriors. They're designed to fight and win battles. Human ships are designed to solve problems. When we meet the Devourers, we're not planning to fight them. Then what are you planning to do? We're going to fix them, make them better. The galaxy has this amazing resource, a self-replicating construction system that can break down any matter and rebuild it into useful forms. The only problem is that it's currently programmed with faulty instructions. Zexhai's voice came out as a croak. You want to reprogram the Devourers? Why not? It's just a software problem when you get down to it. Their genetic code is telling them to consume randomly instead of constructively. We reprogram them to consume according to our specifications, and suddenly, the greatest threat in galactic history becomes the greatest construction workforce in galactic history. The ambassador stood up and walked toward the door. Commander, humanity isn't asking to join your military coalition. We're informing you that we're going to solve your devourer problem whether you want us to or not, because it's an interesting engineering challenge. You can either help us and benefit from the solution, or you can stay out of our way and watch. She paused at the door and turned back with that terrify. 6 months later, Commander Zexhai stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, watching something that defied every principle of military science he'd ever learned. Through the massive viewport, the Devourer swarm that had been terrorizing the Kepler 442 system for the past century was building things. Status report, he requested from his tactical officer, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. Sir, the Devourers have completed construction of the 12th orbital platform. They're now beginning work on what appears to be a massive communications array. Lieutenant Mordan consulted his displays with the expression of someone who had given up trying to understand the universe. Construction efficiency is approximately 4,000% higher than our best automated systems. Zexhai watched as creatures that had once consumed entire civilizations now carefully assembled delicate sensor equipment with their mandibles. And the human fleet? 3 ships, sir. Still just 3 ships. 3 ships. The humans had arrived with 3 ships to face a devourer swarm that had required the combined might of 17 coalition fleets to merely contain. Zexhai had prepared detailed contingency plans for evacuating human survivors and managing the political fallout from their inevitable destruction. Instead, the humans had solved the devourer problem in 6 weeks. Sir, Mordan continued, We're receiving a transmission from Human Admiral Rodriguez. Put him through. The holographic display materialized, showing Admiral James Rodriguez, the same human who had previously endured 14 hours of the Veltar pain protocol while treating it like a minor inconvenience. He appeared to be standing in what looked like a devourer hive ship, casually leaning against a wall of organic architecture, while devourer workers scuttled around him like helpful pets. Commander HFY. Rodriguez's voice carried the cheerful tone of someone discussing the weather. Good news. We've finished the primary reprogramming phase. The Devourers should be fully integrated into the Galactic Infrastructure Network within the next few days. Admiral, HFY began carefully, when you say reprogrammed, we just convinced them that entropy was inefficient. Turns out the Devourers were operating under some pretty basic misconceptions about resource management. They thought consume everything was an optimal strategy, but when we showed them the mathematics of sustainable development, they were surprisingly enthusiastic about switching to a construction-based economy. Behind Rodriguez, a devourer the size of a small building was delicately installing what appeared to be a quantum communications relay. It looked up at the camera and made a sound that the translation matrix rendered as, "Hello, very excited about new job, much more satisfying than eating planets." HFY felt the familiar sensation of reality shifting around him. You negotiated with them? Well, negotiated is a strong word. It was more like debugging their decision-making algorithms. See, the Devourers aren't evil. They're just really good at following their programming. The problem was, their programming was written by natural selection, which is notoriously bad at long-term planning. Rodriguez gestured at something off-camera, and the view shifted to show a massive construction project. Thousands of Devourers were assembling what looked like a space station, but on a scale that dwarfed anything the Coalition had ever built. So we upgraded their programming. Now, instead of consume everything to replicate, they're operating under build sustainable infrastructure to support optimal long-term replication. Same basic drives, just pointed in a more constructive direction. And they just agreed to this? Commander, once we explained the concept of compound interest to a species that reproduces exponentially, they practically reprogrammed themselves. They realized that building civilization was way more efficient than destroying it. The view shifted again, showing what appeared to be a devourer wearing some kind of construction helmet, carefully welding structural elements while humming what the translator identified as a human work song. The best part, Rodriguez continued, is that they're enthusiastic about the work. Turns out the Devourers were actually pretty miserable just consuming things randomly. Now they have purpose, direction, and a clear understanding of how their individual efforts contribute to long-term species success. Their psychological health scores have improved dramatically. HFY looked at Mordan, who was staring at his console as if it might suddenly start making sense. Admiral, what exactly are they building? Oh, this? Rodriguez looked around as if he'd forgotten where he was. This is going to be the new galactic defense platform for this system. The Devourers estimated they could have it finished by next Tuesday. Fully automated, self-repairing, capable of manufacturing its own fleet of defense drones, and powered by a contained stellar extraction system they designed themselves. They designed it themselves? Yeah, they're surprisingly creative once you give them a proper design brief. Turns out that spending millions of years optimizing consumption patterns makes you really good at engineering efficient systems. Who knew? The transmission flickered as something large moved past the camera. HFY caught a glimpse of what appeared to be a devourer wearing human-style work clothes, carrying a toolbox that was probably larger than the Eternal Vigilance. Admiral, I have to ask, what's stopping them from reverting to their previous behavior? Rodriguez's expression became thoughtful. That's a fair question, Commander. The answer is that we've given them something better to do. The Devourers were consuming everything because they were trying to solve the problem of survival in a resource-limited environment. We've shown them how to create unlimited resources through proper infrastructure development. He gestured at the construction around him. They're not just building a defense platform, they're building the foundation for a post-scarcity civilization. Once this is finished, they'll have access to more resources than they could consume in 1 billion years, plus the satisfaction of having created something that will benefit the entire galaxy. And if they change their minds... Commander, have you ever tried to convince a human construction worker to stop a project they're excited about? Rodriguez grinned. The Devourers are experiencing job satisfaction for the first time in their species' history. They're not going to give that up to go back to random destruction. The transmission cut to a wide view of the construction site, and Zexhai realized he was looking at something unprecedented in galactic history. Thousands of creatures that had been the stuff of nightmares were working together in perfect coordination, creating something beautiful and functional and utterly impossible. "Sir," Mordon whispered, "the humans have militarized the concept of job satisfaction." Rodriguez's voice continued over the display. "Oh, and Commander, the Devourers have some ideas about the crystal hegemony problem. Apparently, they've been wanting to try a collaborative approach to resource management, and they think the crystals might be interested in a partnership." Partnership? Yeah, the Devourers are really good at large-scale construction, and the crystals are excellent at precision manufacturing. They're thinking about proposing a joint venture to build better infrastructure for both species. Sort of a galactic construction cooperative. Zexhai felt the universe tilt again. They want to form a business partnership with the crystal hegemony? Why not? The crystals have been trying to expand their territory for the same reason the Devourers were consuming everything: resource scarcity. If we can solve that problem for both species, there's no reason they can't work together. The display showed another impossible sight. A group of Devourers gathered around what appeared to be a planning table, sketching out architectural diagrams with their mandibles while discussing load-bearing calculations. "Admiral, what about the Void Hunters?" "Oh, them? We've got a proposal for them too. Turns out the Void Hunters are really good at moving through space undetected. We're thinking they might be interested in a career change to galactic logistics and transportation. Same skill set, but applied to constructive purposes." "You want to turn the 3 greatest threats in galactic history into a construction company?" "Not just a construction company, Commander. We're thinking more like a comprehensive infrastructure development corporation. The Devourers handle large-scale construction, the crystals do precision manufacturing, and the Void Hunters manage transportation and logistics." Rodriguez paused and looked directly at the camera. "Commander, humanity has been solving problems for 50,000 years. We've learned that the best way to deal with a dangerous enemy isn't to destroy them, it's to give them a better job." The transmission ended, leaving Zexhai staring at the ongoing construction project. In the distance, he could see coalition ships arriving to witness what was already being called the miracle of Kepler 442. Representatives from dozens of species were coming to see the impossible sight of Devourers voluntarily building civilization instead of destroying it. "Sir," Mordan said quietly, "I've been reviewing the human application to the Galactic Defense Coalition. And I don't think they want to join our military alliance, sir. I think they want to turn it into a job placement agency." Zexhai watched as a Devourer carefully installed what appeared to be a decorative element on the space station. Something purely aesthetic, with no functional purpose except to make the structure more beautiful. The creature stepped back to admire its work, then chittered with what the translator rendered as satisfaction. "Lieutenant, prepare a message to the Coalition High Command." "Yes, sir. What should it say?" Zexhai considered his words carefully. "Tell them that humanity has officially solved the Devourer problem, and that we need to completely rethink our approach to galactic threats." Also tell them that the humans don't need natural armor because they've developed something far more dangerous. What's that, sir? The ability to turn any problem into an opportunity. As if summoned by his words, another human transmission came through. This time it was Ambassador Chen, calling from what appeared to be a crystal hegemony ship. Commander HFY, excellent news. The crystals are very interested in the construction cooperative idea. They're sending a delegation to Kepler 442 to discuss joint projects. Also, we've made contact with the Void Hunters, and they're intrigued by our logistics proposal. Ambassador, you've been busy. Oh, this is just the beginning, Commander. We've identified 17 more galactic threats that could be converted into productive economic partnerships. By this time next year, the biggest problem facing galactic civilization won't be defending against hostile species. It'll be managing the economic boom from all the new construction projects. The transmission ended, and HFY realized that humanity hadn't just joined galactic civilization. They had transformed it into something entirely new, something that existed to build rather than merely survive. In the distance, the Devourers continued their work, humming human songs while they assembled the foundation of a better galaxy. NG smile. Oh, and Commander, when we're done with the Devourers, we're planning to solve the Crystal Hegemony too, and the Void Hunters, and the Dark Collective. They're all just different types of problems, and humans really enjoy solving problems. As the door closed behind her, HFY sat alone in the intimidating meeting room, staring at the holographic display of repurposed Devourers and wondering what his species had just encountered. In the distance, he could hear Chen talking to someone in the corridor. Did you see his face when I mentioned the biological weapons? Wait until he finds out about our nuclear mosquitoes. Commander HFY realized that the coalition might need to rethink their understanding of what made a species truly dangerous. Add, no, Lieutenant. I think we're the ones who need to be oriented. As Mordan left to arrange the meeting, HFY remained staring at the human data files. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a disturbing thought was beginning to form. If humans could perform like this without any natural advantages, what would happen when they did gain access to galactic military technology? The soft-skinned species might not need armor because they had evolved something far more terrifying, the complete inability to recognize when they were supposed to lose. He began to understand why the intelligence reports had labeled humans as unusual. That was the kind of understatement that could get entire civilizations destroyed.